Welcome to The Subject Property, your home for Western Australian commercial property news, discussion, analysis. I'm Stephen Harrison. I'm here with Brett Wilkins, one of my fellow directors and Director of Capital Markets here at Ray White Commercial Western Australia.
Nice to be in my first podcast.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
With you.
Yes, exactly. No, we've not potted together before. But we're here today to talk about Brett's new offering, launched just this week, 256 St Georges Terrace, probably better known to the public as the Fortescue Metals Group head office. Brett, talk me through this asset.
Exciting listing, exciting property.
It is.
And I think a really exciting asset class at the moment that a lot of people should be considering. So 256 was built in 1989 and 1990, two stages, just over 23,000 square metres of building. Now, as you said, Steve, fully leased to FMG, 5.5-year WALE plus a 2-year option on top of that.
Yep.
Then, of course, you've got Wilson Parking and a couple of retailers on the Hay Street frontage. So 2 street frontages, extensive frontage to St Georges Terrace, and also to Hay Street.
Yes, substantial building. Who was there before FMG?
So Chevron were there before, and before that PwC. So this building, certainly during Chevron's period and then into FMG, was vacant for less than 1 hour.
Wow, yeah. Because it's interesting, actually, because it's obviously had a long, long history of being a single-tenanted asset, right? And which... Yeah, and personally, I like it as a single-tenanted asset. So sorry, run me through that again. So from Chevron to FMG,
from Chevron to FMG, there was no vacancy. Right. Yeah, they moved out one day, lease finished one day, next lease finished, started the next day.
Yeah.
So they went straight through.
Yeah.
So between FMG and the current owner, or the owner, it's had approximately $80 million spent on internal works. So this presents superbly.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's quite unique to be able to buy an asset that's had that sort of capital expenditure. Capital expenditure just very recently spent. It's interesting that you talk about it only being vacant for 1 hour before FMG. Under lease is never vacant, but so. Yeah, being under contract so quickly, because I know FMG were in the market for new space for quite some time before this building became available. And I mean, the truth is, there's just not that many buildings kicking around town that can offer space to a 20,000 square metre plus tenant.
Let alone the floor plates that FMG insisted upon. Right. They came out of the old Hyatt Centre where they had 6,000 metre floor plates. Yeah. They had very, very specific floor plate requirements. So the floor plates here on levels 1 to 6 are just over 3,000 metres, and levels 7 and 8 are a touch bigger, touch smaller at about 1,500 metres. But the main floor plates, typical floor plates, are 3,000 metres. Now, whilst you might find 25,000 metres in one of the new buildings yet to go up and yet to be commenced construction, those sort of floor plates are difficult. But I think it's the new construction. That's one of the really important things to look at with this whole asset at the moment, and particularly this property. So the net effective rent here for FMG is $570 a metre. To build any new building today of this standard, you will need an economic rent of around about $1,100 a metre. It just won't happen unless you have that sort of economic rent. Now, when you look at what's happening to the vacancy, the lack of supply coming on, which is minimal, supply take-up is still quite strong. The vacancy, so you can see over the next 5 years, vacancies are going to drop dramatically, certainly in premium and an A grade. Incentives will drop dramatically, and effective rents will have to have substantial increases.
Agree. And look, we'll talk about the office market in general in just a second, but I think the economics aside from having to build a new building to accommodate a 20,000 plus square metre tenant, it's just it doesn't actually exist right at this moment. You know, I think you might be able to pick up close to 20,000 square metres in QV1, and there's, you know, I think there's maybe 10 to 15,000 square metres available in a few buildings around town. But if you're a 20,000 square metre plus tenant,
you need a new building.
You need a new building, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you did need a new building, the lead time on projects off this size,
Substantial.
it's
Substantial.
3, 4, 5 years,
And let
right?
alone $80 million, of which the majority of that came from FMG. So they have spent 60 to $70 million on their own fit out works. I mean, I've got to believe that's they're a sticky tenant.
I think they would be. Let's. You touched on it a second ago. Let's talk about the office market in general. So, you mentioned that the new office supply coming on is minimal. I'd go further than that. I would actually say it's non-existent. There is not virtually no construction pipeline for office in Perth. There's literally no construction pipeline for office in the Perth CBD. Which is really, really important, because if you consider property markets, whether it's office or any other asset class, it all comes down to a very, very simple supply and demand equation. And the history that we've had in Perth is that we've seen net absorption of generally anywhere between 15 or 10 or 20,000 square metres every year, but we've had a construction pipeline delivering circa 30 or 40,000 square metres every year. Over the next 5 years, there's no new projects. So that 15 or 20,000 square metres of net absorption over the next 5 years, that's got to find somewhere to go.
No, agreed totally. Look,
Yeah.
Brookfield will start the next Elizabeth Quay building eventually. And maybe Victor Go, but who knows? Yep. But as I said, the economic rent that they're going to require to justify those new developments are north of $1,000 a metre. Yes. And I couldn't agree more. So I've long believed, I believe for a little while now, that the office market is an asset class that people should be looking at. And certainly then you look at, if you're going to look at the office market, you want buildings that are classy, that meet the modern tenant requirements, and 256 St Georges ticks all those boxes.
Agree. Okay, well, we look forward to seeing how this pans out and how the campaign progresses. Thank you for joining us on our inaugural podcast.
All good.
Thank you.